Hi, and welcome to A QueerPOV. I'm your host, David Begor. This show is usually me sitting down with friends, talking about life, coming out, and growth, who they are now and who they are becoming. But today, it's just me. Today, it's about marriage equality. Specifically, the fact that there are still people, right now, actively working to take it away. We are out here fighting for our marriages, mine included. So yeah, it's pretty fucking personal. That's exactly why we can't look away. So let's talk about it. All right, you've proposed, you picked a date. You go to your local courthouse expecting to schedule a ceremony with the town judge, the same one who's been doing it for years. And you get a handwritten note back. She won't do it. Not because you can't legally marry, but because of who you love. That happened in Waco, Texas. The judge is Diane Hensley. She's a justice of the peace, which means an officer of the court, a public servant, someone whose entire job it is to apply the law equally to everyone. Since 2016, she's been performing marriages for extra income, but only for straight couples. When same-sex couples come to her, she didn't face them. She didn't look them in the eye. They get a handwritten note back saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, "I can't perform your wedding due to my sincerely held religious belief." Not "the law prevents me," not "I'm unavailable," her personal religious belief. Let's sit with that for a second. She is a judge. Her entire job, the entire thing, is impartiality. And she is arguing that her religion puts her above that, above the law that she was sworn to uphold. And I have to ask, if the people who enforce the law are exempt from it, what good is it? Who is it actually for? Because based on what we're seeing right now, it clearly isn't for us. Here's what really makes this so frustrating. She wasn't alone. After Obergefell passed in 2015, the ruling that made marriage equality the law of the land, every judge and justice of the peace in Waco stopped performing weddings entirely. Every single one, rather than marry a same-sex couple. 2 years later, the only judge performing weddings in the entire city was Hensley, and she would only marry straight couples. So same-sex couples in Waco still couldn't get a courthouse wedding 2 years after it became their legal right. She eventually got in trouble with the Texas State Commission on Judicial Conduct, and instead of changing her behavior, she sued. In December 2025, just a few months ago, she filed a federal lawsuit arguing that the Obergefell ruling itself was unconstitutional. Not just that she should be allowed to opt out, that the ruling that gave us the right to marry should be thrown out entirely. And there's a second judge in North Texas who filed his own lawsuit, saying that he feared the same kind of punishment as Hensley, which means this isn't one rogue judge doing her own thing, this is coordinated. Religion is being used as a shield against the law. Now her lawyer, his name is Jonathan Mitchell, and if that name sounds familiar, it should. He is the architect of the Texas 2021 abortion ban, the one that was built so private citizens could enforce it, not the courts. That ban worked. Roe v. Wade fell a year later. His argument in the Hensley filing is straightforward. Obergefell was wrongly decided. It should be overturned. And marriage should go back to being regulated state by state. That's exactly what happened with abortion. And Mitchell doesn't operate alone. This is a coordinated coalition of conservative organizations, including the Family Research Council and Focus on the Family, actively organizing to challenge Obergefell. This effort was first reported by the Daily Signal, a conservative outlet founded by and fully funded by the Heritage Foundation for 10 years before becoming independent in 2024. The Heritage Foundation, the same organization that authored Project 2025. Project 2025 does not explicitly call for overturning marriage equality, but here's what it does say. On page 451, in writing, it states that the only legitimate family is a married mother, father, and their children, and that this is the foundation of a well-ordered nation. On pages 479 through 481, it calls on the federal government to maintain, and I'm quoting directly here, a biblically based, social science reinforced definition of marriage and family. It also explicitly opposes what it calls the non-religious definitions of marriage and family in the Respect for Marriage Act, the very law protecting your marriage right now. They don't have to say ban gay marriage out loud. They're laying the groundwork to make our marriages legally meaningless. One policy, one page, one federal agency at a time. And the Heritage Foundation's own president wrote in 2022 that the Supreme Court invented a constitutional right to same-sex marriage out of thin air. Those are the same words Jonathan Mitchell used in the Hensley filing. So here's what's actually going on. Mitchell acknowledged in the filing that lower federal courts don't currently have the authority to overturn marriage equality. He knows this case probably won't win in the courts. And that's not the point. The goal here is to build a legal argument and get it into the system. And eventually, he hopes he'll get it in front of the Supreme Court. This matters because the Supreme Court has changed dramatically since 2015. Justice Kennedy, who wrote the Obergefell decision, was replaced by Brett Kavanaugh. Justice Ginsburg, who joined the majority, was replaced by Amy Coney Barrett. They are explicitly betting on a friendlier Christian nationalist court. And they're not hiding it. It's in the document. When the Dobbs decision came down in 2022 and overturned Roe v. Wade, Justice Clarence Thomas wrote a concurring opinion, meaning he agreed with the outcome but wanted to go further. In that opinion, he explicitly called on the court to reconsider Obergefell. A sitting Supreme Court justice put in writing that he thinks that our right to marry should be reconsidered. Now, the court actually had a recent chance to weigh in on this. The Supreme Court recently declined to hear a case from Kim Davis, the Kentucky clerk who refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples, citing her Christian faith. The same Kim Davis who has been married 4 times to 3 different men. And I'm not here to judge Kim Davis. I don't care who she's married to. That's between her and her Savior. But this is heterosexual privilege. In this country, that privilege has a very long history of telling us our love needs to be regulated while theirs gets a pass. And not a single justice dissented from that decision or filed a statement saying they wanted to revisit Obergefell. So for right now, today, the ruling stands, and there's no immediate sign that the court is rushing to touch it. But here's what keeps rattling around in my brain. In 2015, legal experts called Roe v. Wade settled law, and in 2022, it was gone. And I'm not saying that to freak you out. I'm saying it because we deserve to know the facts of what we're dealing with. Just last month, on February 23rd, an Idaho House committee approved the introduction of a joint memorial asking the Supreme Court to overturn Obergefell outright. Now, a joint memorial isn't law. It's a request. But here's why this matters. This is the second time they've tried this. A nearly identical memorial was introduced in 2025 in partnership with Mass Resistance. Mass Resistance is a far-right anti-LGBTQ hate group. And it stalled. They came back, they are persistent, and they are coordinated. And one more thing. Remember earlier when I mentioned that Judge Hensley was sanctioned by the Texas State Commission? Well, in October 2025, the Texas Supreme Court quietly amended its judicial conduct code to say that Texas judges who decline to perform weddings based on sincerely held religious belief don't violate the state's rules on impartiality. So in other words, Texas just gave judges a legal pass to discriminate against us. This show is a queer point of view. And this is my point of view on this. Because when I think about marriage equality, I don't just think about the legal right. I think about what it meant, what it felt like when it passed in 2015. I think about the couples who had been together 20, 30, 40 years who finally got to make it official. And I think about me, and I think about my husband, Derek. We got married in 2016. And I remember what that felt like, to know that our marriage, our love was recognized, was protected, and was real in the eyes of the law. How it changed the way we see each other, no longer just as significant others, but as true partners seen by the state. We were counted, we were real. This is not a religious recognition. It's the government saying, we see you fully. And now someone wants to take that back because of their religion, claiming marriage belongs to them. That's not abstract for me. That's my life. And the idea that someone is working to undo that with strategy, with a lawyer who's done it before, it makes me angry. And I think that's okay. I think we're allowed to be angry. But here's the part I think is especially important for us, for queer people to sit with. This country has a very long history of using religious freedom and states' rights as a legal cover for discrimination. The playbook is not new. The target just changes. And if marriage equality goes back to the states like abortion did, the communities most affected are going to be queer people in the South, in rural areas, red states, in places where the legislature does not have our best interest at heart. And queer people in red states get hit hardest, because not everyone has the option to just pick up and move. And in states where it gets banned, LGBTQ protections are already the weakest. Yes, I'm frustrated with all that is going on, but here's why I'm hopeful. The Respect for Marriage Act was passed by Congress in 2022 with bipartisan support. 12 Republican senators voted for it. It provides federal protection for same-sex marriages and requires states to recognize marriages performed in other states, even if Obergefell were somehow overturned. Your existing marriage has federal protection. That's real. That matters. Could Congress repeal it? Technically, yes, but with nearly 70% of Americans supporting marriage equality, including a majority of Republicans, it would be a politically dangerous move, especially heading into midterms. It's not the most immediate threat we're facing. The bigger fight, the one we need to watch, is still in the courts. Legal experts say Hensley's case has major legal roadblocks, and it is a long shot to ever reach the Supreme Court. The conservative justices have, so far, shown no rush to take up this fight. And our community? Well, we've been here before. Not us specifically, but our people. Queer people have always had to fight for the right to exist with dignity. And we keep showing up. We keep building chosen families and communities and lives that are full and real and beautiful, regardless of what any court says about us. That doesn't mean we stop paying attention. It means we pay attention and we keep living. Both things at the same time. So what do? We stay informed. Read the sources in the show notes. Share them. Talk about this episode with someone in your life. The more people who understand what's actually happening, and not just the headlines, but the strategy behind it, the harder it is for these things to move quietly. And know your rights. If you're married, your marriage is federally protected right now under the Respect for Marriage Act. Lambda Legal and the ACLU have free resources even if you have questions about your state. Support the organizations in the fight. Lambda Legal and the ACLU, GLAD, they're monitoring cases like Hensley's and they're prepared to go to court. They run on donations and visibility. Follow them, share their work. And if you can, give. Use your voice. Contact your state legislators. I know this feels pointless. It isn't. Make them hear you. And keep being you. We win when they can't take away our queer joy. Check in with your people, your chosen family, your community, anyone who might be scared right now, and remind them they're not alone. That's what's been on my mind today. Marriage equality is not a done deal, and we owe it to each other to keep talking about it. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to this episode of A Queer Point of View, Friends, Loves, and Life. You can find me on Substack, YouTube, and Blue Sky, all at David Begor. DM me some questions, send me some ideas, or just say hi. If you have a moment, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm David Begor. Until next time, be bold, be free, and most of all, be you.